There are no funerals for lost fertility, no eulogies for lost marriages, but the grief and pain is just as real.
You don't need a funeral or a casket to grieve, right?
Grief doesn't show up in black and white. Today's guest, Dr. John Onwuchekwa, is here to help us with the layers in between.
The very first thing is being able to name it. It's so liberating to be able to just call that out as grief. Ambiguous loss. It is the death of a relationship, the loss of your identity, terminal diagnoses, a significant change in how you look and feel and things that gave you your sense of who you are and your worth. Grief is a language, and if we never learn it, we'll never learn how to heal.
Today's guest is someone who has helped thousands of people navigate grief and find a language to discuss that pain. I'm talking about Dr. John Onwuchekwa, who is a pastor, a poet, and the author of Grief is a Language. He is an expert who has helped so many people, and we're so happy to have you here today to talk about grief as it relates to Sisters Network and breast cancer survivors and just grief as a whole.
Yeah, I'm honored to be here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
John, we're talking today about grieving, and thank you so much for being here today to talk about such a sensitive subject and really a mysterious subject to many.
Yeah.
Let's just jump right in there. Let's talk about ambiguous grief.
Yeah.
And is that a term you gave it, or is that a
No, so it's a term coined by Dr. Pauline Boss, right? And so her thing was this, right? Grief had been so narrowly defined as the death of a loved one, but as she looked at folks that grieved, there was this whole world of circumstances and events that led people to grieve in the same way. So what you found was that you don't need a funeral or a casket to grieve, right? So there's a tangible grief, right? And that is, I have a loved one, they die, go to the funeral, when their body is dropped into the ground, tears sprint down my cheeks. Everybody that surrounds me sees my fallen tears, fallen body, and they come around and you're supported and they say, what's wrong? And they give you time. Then there's ambiguous loss, right? So it is, the death of a relationship, right? The loss of your identity, the death of a marriage, terminal diagnoses, a significant change in how you look and feel and things that gave you your sense of who you are and your worth. It is somebody living, but not as they once were. And what takes place is that there's the same grief. Your heart swells, your brain responds in the same way. And when those same tears start to fall down your cheek, people don't know what to do with it because there's not a
tangible element
funeral repast program. Yeah.
And so how does one manage that?
Yeah, well, so the very first thing is being able to name it, right? It's so liberating to be able to just call that out as grief, right? When people find themselves with these ambiguous losses, the biggest problem is not the loss. It is the loneliness that comes after that loss, right? So
is that because people don't understand?
Because people don't know, right? So think about this. You lose a loved one, and for however long, though it's still too short, people say, what do you need? Can I buy you food? Is there a meal train? There's all these tangible responses. If you start to break down and cry, people come and they put a hand on your shoulder and back. Ambiguous loss, it is a loneliness and an isolation because you feel this grief. And on your best days, folks look at you and they say, I don't know why they're still sad. Or at their worst, people can look at you and compare your life to somebody else that is going through a grief and say,
it's not big enough.
It's not big enough, right? And they give permission to grieve by the size and the tangibility of the grief. And when you do that, you ostracize and isolate people that really just need comfort, consolation, hugs. So it just feels incredibly lonely because now I've lost my sense of self and who I was. And now I've lost my friend group and support base, or it is a safety net that you fall into and you found that somebody's cut that net. And so it's just, heartbreaking.
So the work that we do with Sisters Network,
Yes.
We deal with Black breast cancer survivors.
Right.
And so they're grieving a lot of things. They're grieving the hair that they lost through treatment. They're grieving life before cancer.
Yeah.
They're grieving potentially mobility,
Right.
The ability to bear children. Some lose that privilege. And even some relationships, marriages suffer and are lost.
Yeah.
Talk to me about what that looks like for a cancer survivor before and after.
Yeah. So that seems like it's an incredibly tough place to be in, because we all, and we've had those that we've lost to cancer. So when somebody survives, it's a different type of grief because they're surrounded by people that are celebrating and saying they should be grateful because at least they're still
strong
here.
And you've done it.
Yeah. And they live as if, joy and sadness can't be in the same space, right? Mm-hmm. It is okay to say, I am glad that I'm still here, and
I'm sad what I lost.
I am sad what I lost, right? I'm glad that I'm still here. I'm glad that I have the family that I had, or that is still here, but I'm sad that this caused a type of infertility that has robbed me of a very specific future that I had in my view. And it's if you have to spend the bulk of your time explaining to people that you're still sad and giving an apologetic for why it's okay to still be sad,
right.
That's heartbreaking. That feels so emptying. So one of the things that we try to do through the years is to help folks see we have to reframe how it is we think of grief as a whole, right? Okay. People tend to think of grief as a journey. There's a start, right? Grief starts and there's an end. One day I'm not going to think. Right. Journeys have starts and they have ends. Grief doesn't, or it has a start, but it doesn't have an end, right? That there's so many things to grieve. My brother died 10 years ago. My daughter was born 8 years ago. And with every birthday that she has, I grieve the fact that Sam won't get to meet her, right? So grief starts, but it does not have an end. And so if we continue to think about grief as a journey and talk through it like that, then what we do is we tend to send folks in search of light at the end of a closed tunnel, right? And that is just a terrible, terrible place to send folks. Right. I think it's more helpful for us to think of grief not as a journey, but a language, right? And the goal of a language is not to finish, it's to become fluent. It's to say, all right, no, I need to be able to, right, be in a place where when I voice my grief, people don't condemn it, question it. They don't over spiritualize things to a way where they live as if God can't be good and I can be sad at the same time, right? It's the feeling of being in a foreign country where nobody speaks your native tongue and you just feel by yourself, alone, isolated, and you're in a gift shop and you hear somebody say words that you know, and not just words that you know, but they say it with that Houston drawl, right?
Yes.
And you turn around and you just feel this sense of,
yeah,
I don't know who you are, I don't know where you come from, but I feel this sense of peace because there's somebody else with me. I would imagine that it's the same thing in the work that you do, that what people enjoy most is.
So let's talk about the guilt that I would imagine sometimes comes with a person on a cancer journey and managing their grief or stuffing it down sometimes because, like you said, sometimes they feel like people don't understand because it's not maybe necessarily visible because maybe they haven't lost their hair at this point, but they know it is potentially coming because of the treatment process that they're in and they're preparing themselves. And people are saying, well, it's okay, you can get a wig. It's okay, you can do this. It's okay. But they're not understanding the core loss. We talk to ladies who feel guilty about talking about certain things because, again, the layers or the it being ambiguous to that individual, it's hard.
Oh, very hard. And it feels impossible. And this is where it's like, when we start to reframe grief, not as a journey, but a language, we find out that the problem that we're trying to solve is not trying to help people cope with the loss, is we're trying to help people cope with the loneliness that comes from that loss, right? So what I would say to somebody that finds themselves and they're feeling guilty, what they don't need is to say something to convince the people that make them feel guilty that they shouldn't feel guilty. What they need to do is they need to find a community of folks that there's this one scholar, that says friendship is born at the moment one person says to the next, you too? I thought I was the only one.
And that's important when you say that, because at the core of who Sisters Network is about sisterhood.
Right.
And the commonality between these ladies, at least for what we do, is breast cancer. And so we've always wanted to be that source of support and sisterhood. It's not a sisterhood you want to be in.
Right.
But if you are invited into that sisterhood, we want to give them a place and a space where they're understood.
Absolutely.
And so when you say that about the friend, it's like you too or me too, it is a safer space because you have that common bond. And that's so important, to be able to, and we feel privileged to be able to provide our survivors that safe space, and that as a non-survivor, I don't walk in the shoes, as an actual survivor. I am very sensitive to it because it runs very deeply in my family, and I work in the space, but I am not a survivor in that sense. And so providing that space and that commonality is critical to the work that we do.
And I think it's incredible work that you do, and it's so, in some ways, it's helpful that you're not a survivor because you model and you show how the rest of us can come alongside and help those that are there, right? I have a very close friend that says, the greatest gift that you can give to a grieving soul is safety, providing them that safe space where they're free to say and to share all of the things. And what you find out is that the more that grievers speak out loud and share those things that they stuff down, the more that you find out the most healing words for a grieving soul often comes not from somebody else, but from within themselves. But it just takes them time to be able to process and to name, this is what I've lost. And like anybody that learns how to speak, right, it takes time. And with children, as they learn how to speak, right, when my daughter learned how to talk, I'm not correcting all of the words that she says wrong, right? She goes through the day and I look for the one or two that she says right. And I said, that's it. That's great. More of that. And being able to provide grieving souls with that, you start to find that, right, this truth that, we want to be quiet about our grief because it's uncomfortable and it's hard to bear. But what we have to know, what grief is just the natural response of sadness to somebody that has lost something that they love. And when we frame it that way, when we let folks share their grief story, we're actually saying, would you tell me more about your love, the thing that you loved and the thing that you've lost? And I can lament with you in the thing that you loved and you lost. But then as time goes on, we can start to talk about there are other things in life that we can love. And this grief may birth an opportunity for future love and for more love. And so when we think of grief, that every grief story is actually a love story, it keeps us from...
That's something important in your life or someone. It's not, like you said, just about an actual person. It's about, like you said, it could be the job. It could be a
100%.
Relationship. It could be so many things. And there is no funeral for breast.
Absolutely.
We know that.
Right.
But we love our breasts.
Right.
It's a part of us. It's who we are.
Yes.
It's part of our identity as women of any color, for that matter. And so it's something we love. And I've heard that term, grief is love where no place to go.
Yeah.
And I heard that maybe a year or two ago, and it just stuck with me.
Yeah.
It's beautiful and sad at the same time.
It is.
But it puts it into context about just life and loss.
Yeah.
And then we have to talk about, how we move forward from the grief.
Right.
Like you said, it may never go away, but how do we manage to acknowledge but still move on?
One of the things that I've learned is this, if we're ever really going to help folks work through this, the more ambiguous the loss, the more tangible the comfort needs to be. All right. Ooh. So the more ambiguous the loss, the more we need to work to create some type of ritual or place or something that people can tangibly come back to, right? That those are things that help us in our brain realize, all right, there is a start and there is a stop, right? The rituals that we have in life aren't just symbolic, but they help us transition. They help us to see one thing has stopped and now it's time for a new thing to begin. And so I do think the more ambiguous the loss, the more tangible the consolation. And what that should lead us to is to think about what rituals, what events, what things do we need to create so that people that have grieved these ambiguous losses can find themselves in a space, where there is,
So how do we support, we meaning someone who's not walking in that person's shoes, that grief journey for them initially? Like what's too much? What's too little?
Yeah. It is a tightrope. And I wish there were a cookie cutter way to do it. It is a tightrope that...
Because everyone grieves differently, everybody receives differently.
So it's like this, the best way that we can help is to start and to know that regardless of where we start, we're going to have to adjust. So we have to come into it with an elastic mindset, saying, all right, there is a baseline. There's a place that I can start. One of the places that I love to help folks start is this. Most folks, when they find some kind of a loss, the thing that we've learned to say is, sorry for your loss. And what that can do is it can tend to just remind somebody that they do not have what they once did, right? And it feels this sense of like, I don't just want to talk about my loss. But if our grief stories are love stories, then if we just sit and say, hey, I'd love for you to, if you have time, would you tell me, stories, not just about your loss, but your love, right? You feel this loss because you loved this thing so deeply. And when we go through loss, people tend to apologize for the things that we've lost, but they don't ask us about the things that we love. So unless we start, we don't get a chance to share stories about the things that we lost. And so one of the best things that that we can do for grieving souls is to ask, about all of those things and then let them respond. And then we sit back with an elasticity where it's
So you're flexible.
yeah. So if they seem to engage with it, then you go in and you ask more. If it seems to be too much to them for right now, to say, I'm so sorry, I did not mean to bring all that up. Would you let me know when you do want to talk? And I think that the best thing is to constantly pursue those that are grieving and just not put them in a place where they have to initiate conversations about the things that they lost.
So like a woman who's lost her breast,
Yes.
that is a visible,
Yeah.
unless they've done reconstruction, obviously.
Yeah. So I have less experience with that than you do. And so I'd love to hear from your standpoint, what are some of the things that you found to be helpful, right? And like what are, when somebody has lost that, what are some of the common concerns, feelings, and heartbreaks? And
Yeah, I think one of the things is that we try to help them align with someone who has maybe had a similar diagnosis,
Yeah.
treatment, and now life beyond breast cancer.
Yeah.
And because they can tell them better than we
Right.
could
Yeah.
firsthand,
Right.
What they've done.
Yeah.
Maybe it's someone who's struggling with, do I want to do reconstruction or not? Because it's a big surgery.
Yeah.
To make them feel whole again,
Right.
or so they feel whole in their mind, And what does that look like?
Yeah.
Because, it's another surgery. It could be another complication. It could be, anytime you have any kind of, procedure, there's always risk and as well as rewards to the procedure if it's, cosmetic or something of that nature. So helping them, again, align with the person who's had that. We've been looking at some therapists that are cancer specialists who help survivors navigate that journey from a professional standpoint. So we've put together some resources for that because, a therapist who talks about just maybe depression, but not a depression that's maybe connected to a health challenge, there are different conversations, very different conversations, Yeah, so we just look for any way that we can be supportive.
Yeah.
Again, I think the anchor of us being a sisterhood, and we have over 30 chapters around the country,
Right.
being there in the community, making sure our community talks about things, because our slogan is "Stop the Silence," and that's not just about that's not just about normalizing conversation about breast health. It's also can be related to the grieving process.
Absolutely.
And that giving people permission
Yeah.
that it's okay to grieve. It's okay to say out loud, I'm sad, I'm angry about the loss of pre-breast cancer diagnosis and what that looked like, or what I hoped for of that life.
Yeah.
We try to give them new hope
Yeah.
of what life will look like after.
Right. Yeah.
Because we can't change what happened pre-diagnosis.
Right.
But we can talk about what can be post-diagnosis and showing them examples of women who are living fully, vibrantly, and beautiful lives and have moved on from survivorship. Some, the founder and CEO is a wonderful example. She's a 4-time 31-year survivor. 82 years old now. And so as we look at so many young women being diagnosed in their 30s and so forth, we try to amplify folks like the founder and CEO or other ladies within the organization who, they are 10, 15 plus 20 years post diagnoses.
Right.
So that they see turning their grief into hope.
Yeah. No, as I hear you talk, it just reminds me, and I think I hear y'all say this, like what a loss of any kind does is it gives us a chance to reaffirm our personhood, who it is that we are, right? It's easy for who we are, for us to define it by things that we can lose, right? And we never want to build the core of our identity on things that we can lose. And so while it is tragic and
Devastating.
unfortunate, we don't want to say this is, right? We don't want to speak about it crassly and say, this is a gift, just look at the bright side.
Right.
But we do want to sit back and say, it sounds like you treat it with all the intentionality that a sculptor would treat a rock, right? It's saying, all right, there is this big rock, and although there are parts of this rock that are gonna get chipped away, each part that is chipped away, it is a loss, but it is also something that is going to help us further define the core and the essence of what this is. And so that does seem like a way to breathe purpose into something that is so devastating.
Yeah. It's a big one, and I thank you for giving us the language of how to navigate grief and how to try to look forward, and especially when you're grieving the intangible.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, it's a different type of navigation.
Yeah.
And I think giving yourself grace.
Yeah. Yes.
You know, grace in grief.
Yes.
Is I like that.
That's it. You should write that down.
I might just use that.
Okay, yeah, do it.
But grace in grief, because like you said, it's a process, it's a journey. And so giving yourself that grace to navigate that grief, to get hopefully to the other side, or to get to a position where you can embrace the loss, but you can embrace the new birth of what that looks like, whatever that loss is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I ran cross country in high school. My coach made us if we wanted to play ball, and we were running miles.
Were you good?
Oh, I was good at playing ball. I was not good at running.
Okay.
I hated every bit of it, and the distance was so long. And I remember I went and I talked to him, and I'm like, every day that I get out there, it is agonizing. I just wait for the finish. I look for the finish. I look for the finish, and I do not know how I'm going to step out on this track one more day and run. And he said, John, you've got to change your mindset. All right. We've got to work on not just trying to get you faster to the finish. We've got to get you to a place where you learn to love running. Yeah. That if you just learn to love the journey, if you can learn to love each step, then it doesn't matter how long you're out there, because you find pleasure not in the stopping, but in the continuing to go on. Yeah. And I think this is the same thing, right? That the goal is saying, oh, the goal is not to end grief. There is no grief. The goal is to find meaning and to find some way to love each step, even if they are brutal and hard. Yeah.
So, we see people, of course, grieve in very different ways, anger, sadness, laughter, sometimes masked for their sadness. Yeah. And so when we see that as watching the griever in for instance, the laughter, and we might think, well, is she taking this very seriously? Like this is a serious issue. Yeah. What is some tools or best practices that one can have to be supportive of that individual when we feel like it may not be the traditional way of grieving? I don't know if I'm saying it correctly.
No, it is. So it's like the thing that we try to say all the time is there is no right and wrong way to grieve. There's a right and a left way to grieve, right? It's just types. And so for the past few years, we've done this immersive tour that has gone from coast to coast, where one night we get a room, 400 to 500 folks come into that room. Wow. And there is music, storytelling, film, comedy, conversation. And what you find is people come into that room and they sit there and they kind of don't know what to expect. And 2 hours later, they leave with tear-stained cheeks, smiling, saying, I didn't know I was allowed to feel all those things at the same time.
Right.
And what you find
So you're invoking all these feelings during that tour.
Yeah, and all of it is around grief, but just trying to help folks see that it's, oh no, there is a part of grief where sometimes like grief is so hard that what you need is the blessed forgetfulness of being able to just not think about the grief, right? Think of like if you had a root canal on your tooth and you've got to get it done, the doctor is going to numb your mouth,
right,
so that it can take place. It is, if you live your entire life saying, I'm not going to get a root canal, I'm just going to numb my gums when I need to eat, that's a terrible way to live.
Right.
But for a segment of time,
it's okay.
It's okay. And you just want to help folks see, no. It is completely okay for you not to think about this, to forget about it, to watch Netflix for a lot more than you need, if that's what you need right now. And what we find is that with each of these things, no, it's okay to get lost in a movie because you found that this movie is giving you the language that you need, that you can look at that and say, in conversations that I've had with folks here, I feel isolated. But as I watch this movie, I say, you too? I thought I was the only one. Music, right? This gives me the words of what it is that I feel. And when people get all of that, they find this. They don't just have permission to grieve, but they have a script now where they can say these words. And so one of the best things that we can do is, as we see a thing that surprises us, we don't critique or correct, we question. And we say, oh, this is great. I see that this had made you feel better. What was it about that laugh or that joke? What was it about that film? What was it about that? Yeah. And you'll be surprised how when that prompt comes, folks will say things like, oh, I mean, I didn't think about it at all. But now that you ask me, it's this helped to remind me of this, or I enjoyed seeing brothers interact in this way because I lost mine, or I enjoyed seeing a woman lose so much of what made her her, but still thrive at the end. And that made me feel like it was possible, that once we learned that nobody's behavior rises above their vision, then you start to see people that are grieving spend their time trying to look for, can I get a vision
right,
of a hopeful life
after?
Yes. Right. Is it possible? And if it is, then maybe there's hope for me, right? That what we've learned at the end is that tragedy doesn't ruin anybody. Hopelessness does.
Wow.
Feeling that there is no hope for me. And all hope is the feeling that the feeling I have right now isn't permanent.
Right.
And if you can convince somebody that what they feel now.
It's the bridge.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, thank you, John.
Thank you, Colleen.
Thank you for giving us that bridge.
Absolutely.
To manage grief. And I want to make sure our listeners and viewers learn more about that wonderful tour that you're doing, because it sounds impactful and powerful.
Oh, thank you.
And you got 500 folks in the room grieving together?
Grieving together and having a great time. So,
all right.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I thank you so much.
Oh, thank you,
Such
Colleen.
a kind soul.
Oh, thank you so much. Pleasure being with y'all.
The motivation working in oncology is easy. I think we all have a family member or a friend that's affected by cancer, and you just know the toll that takes on not only that person, but their family.
While I might not today be in one of those situations where I desperately need a medicine for someone I care about, millions of people are all over the world in that exact situation. Like, we are the people who make those things.
No shortcuts, no compromises. We discovering, we identifying, we applying cutting-edge technologies and the methodologies in our daily work.
Whether I can improve with new technology, doing something faster, I'm always trying to get better in every experiment that I'm running.
I think we constantly have to be pushing those boundaries, not just so that we can stay at the forefront as a science and technology company.
Being bold with ideas can really help us make breakthroughs and bring us a step closer to discovering effective treatments for patients.